When Snoop was asked about the Clippers, the JV team to most LA natives back in January on Stephen A's World, he had this to say.
Laker to a Clipper, man, I can't be faded. Come on, man. We talking about the Clippers, the team that has 0 banners, that are the opening night champions for 14 years straight, have no banners, no nothing. Kawhi is a great player. Paul George is a great player. They got great coaches and the homies on their team. They do a great job, but they're not the Lakers, man. It's just something about that purple and gold, man. And it's like they need to get a whole new stadium and get a whole new stigma, because they're never going to win playing in our living room.
Gotta be Gucci's with the bees. But last night, after his Lakers got embarrassed in Phoenix, he posted this gem on IG and had me dying. Look at the last line. Never thought I'd say it, but we're sorry. The Clippers better than us. Frank Vogel can't coach, and why the F Montrezl Harrell isn't getting no run. This is heartbreaking. AD hurt more than Mary J. Blige records. We saw. Q, not gonna cry. Clippers Mavs all tied up at Game 2, a pivotal Game 5 tonight at Staples Center. Kawhi is 3rd in points per game this postseason, averaging 33. Keep in mind, Kawhi is from California. Stephen A. Does Kawhi have the best chance to become the king of LA?
The best chance to become the king of LA? No. They haven't won anything yet. Last time I checked, LeBron has the ring. He's the reigning defending NBA champion. And even if he loses Thursday night or Saturday, it does not mean that the Clippers win. I will say this, however. Snoop Dogg, by the way, for both of y'all to know, Snoop Dogg couldn't make it on the show this morning because he's filming a movie in Atlanta, Georgia, as we speak. So he couldn't get loose to come on First Take this morning. That's why he's not here. But he did send me a text that wanted to elaborate further on the quote that he put on Instagram. Quote, Lakers, too many non-shooters, soft-ass guards in our rotation, can't guard, can't shoot. We doomed. Clippers may come out of the West, and I wouldn't even be mad at this point if Kawhi and PG-13 faced Brooklyn for it all. Popcorn, get it ready. Yep. That's what he said. So I understand where he's coming from. I understand how we looking at the Clippers, but I would remind y'all that Damian Lillard dude that we just finished talking about, they still alive. Jokic, who you were talking about earlier, they still alive. And by the way, the Utah Jazz, even though Memphis is still alive, we expect Utah to win that series with a healthy Donovan Mitchell. They the favorites. So let's not forget all of those things as we sit here and talk about Kawhi as the king of LA. Just because the Lakers are out don't make you the king. You gotta win.
The answer is, does Kawhi have the best chance to replace LeBron as the king of LA? Is yes. Yes, he does. He has the best chance. I may have been a year early on my LeBron decline prediction and Kawhi taking over prediction. And this is not like, will the Clippers flip LA? That'll never happen. That could happen with the Knicks and the Nets. You know why? The Knicks don't have the same equity in this town. They haven't won in so long. Lakers got crazy equity in LA. They've given that city more glory and championships than anybody. That town's never going to be a Clippers town over a Lakers town. But, Stephen A., we know this is true. And Molly, you've lived in LA. I've lived in LA. And Stephen A., you're out there all the time. Lakers fans and, say, Kobe fans are not always the same thing. Right? There's a big overlap, but there are people who are just Kobe fans.
Yeah.
There are Lakers fans who, if the Lakers are sorry and the Clippers are a powerhouse, will root for Kawhi and Paul George, especially since they're from there. So will they flip the town the way the Nets are about to flip New York? Because the Knicks have been sorry for so long. That's never going to happen in LA. Clippers will never flip it. But dudes like Kawhi and Paul George, yes, they can run the town, even if they're not on the Lakers, because they'll be hometown heroes who are balling in the absence of the Lakers' presence. So, yeah, Kawhi could become king of LA. That could happen.
I got you. I just think to be the king, you've got to have a crown. You got to have a crown.
Yeah, you're going to have to win.
You can't be the king just because LeBron loses. You got to win.
You're going to have to win.
Let me just say one thing, and I haven't lived in LA in a while, but I lived there about 4 years. And Stephen A., get in on this. When Max says that he knows Lakers fans that if the Lakers are out would root for the Clippers. I do not know any. Any Laker fan I know is so
Neither do I.
diehard for the purple.
No, I didn't say Clippers. Kawhi and Paul George.
I don't know that.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
you may
All
have
Lakers
corrected
fans
yourself,
I know.
but you originally said the Clippers.
Yeah, I've never heard of a Lakers fan that would also root for Kawhi and Paul George or the Clippers. Ever.
What would Snoop say if they play Brooklyn? Get the popcorn. Who do you think Snoop be pulling for?
No, he didn't say he'd root for the Clippers. He just said that they would be in the position, and he can't be mad because he's so disgusted at the Lakers. I didn't
Snoop's
read
gotta
you
come on
anything
and
that
answer
said
that.
he'd root for the Clippers.
Yeah.
Snoop's got to come up.
But you knew what was stacked against you, particularly with Anthony Davis out. And here you are, you show up, and I know that you made passes and guys weren't shooting open shots. I get all of that. Other times they were missing, and I'll let Max get into all of that because there were a few people on the Los Angeles Lakers that were pathetic. They were soft, they were weak, they came across as a team that conceded the game pretty much minutes into it. But LeBron's the leader. And guess what? He didn't look much better. So I'm going to put that on him because it's not just about you scoring your points or whatever. It's you galvanizing the troops and leading in the way that you're supposed to. He didn't do that last night. But the big onus, a bigger onus to me, falls on Coach Frank Vogel. See, it's moments like this where you get reminded that Frank Vogel wasn't their first choice. He really wasn't their second choice. It's just that because of somewhat of a checkered past against Jason Kidd, he couldn't be the guy that was hired to be the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. Because I'm here to tell you as a point of fact that Jeannie Buss wanted Jason Kidd to be the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, which is why everybody was contemplating, how long is Frank Vogel going to be there? But props to Frank Vogel, who came in and won the chip last year and had them ready to play in the bubble. But last night, Mr. Vogel, Coach Vogel, where the hell was your defense? I mean, we saw guys running layup lines. We saw guys shooting uncontested, wide open three-point shots. We saw them pushing the ball up the floor and guys not getting back. We saw you put forth a starting five last night that hadn't started together all season long, if I remember correctly. And by the way, where the hell is Montrezl Harrell? Where the hell is he? Okay? Because it's just inexcusable that you haven't found a way to use this dude who's the sixth man of the year. You brought him there. I understand that Andre Drummond is a bigger body. He can play. He was serviceable with his 13 rebounds, 4 offensive. But Montrezl Harrell is an Energizer Bunny. He's a dog, and I mean that in a positive way. He's a dog. Where the hell is he? You got to put him out there. You know Anthony Davis is not reliable. Now, I'm not going to disrespect Anthony Davis because if you injured, you injured. And he's got multiple injuries to the same leg, Max, and I get that. But damn, you got Charles Barkley on the air. I mean, if ever there was a time Charles Barkley was hilarious and made you fall out of your chair, it was last night when he called Anthony Davis street clothes.
Yeah, pull up the. We have his injury history for this season. If we can pull that up.
I mean, that was just hilarious. Okay, and I ain't knocking. I don't like to chide Anthony Davis because you injured, and I respect that. But the bottom line is he's an injury-prone player. You know this, Frank Vogel. How in the hell do you not prepare the Los Angeles Lakers, particularly your front line, to be able to play without Anthony Davis, at least defensively, at least when it comes to rebounding, at least when it comes to having some kind of interior presence? That's on Frank Vogel. That's on Frank Vogel. Yeah. So I'm just looking at it, Max, and I'll hand it off to you by saying this. LeBron James, listen, it's on the line. I don't want to hear no damn GOAT conversations. It was never an issue with me. I don't want to hear. You better show up in Game 6 and be not just a great player we know you to be, somebody who's worthy of being on a Mount Rushmore. You better galvanize these troops and get these boys ready because your teammates look soft. They look weak. Last night, they just got straight pumped. You down by 30 in the first half.
Let's get Max in here.
That's what happened.
The person most responsible for the loss, and it took a lot of people to have a loss like that. Like, you could say whatever you want. I don't know what happened in the second half of that game. Anyone watching the second half of that game? Everyone was watching Denver and Portland. 20 down, 27 down, 30 points at the half. Get out of here. The person most responsible for the loss is Dennis Schroeder. That's the person most responsible. And I don't want to hear, Stephen A., the particulars about what role needs to be filled now that AD's not playing. It's much simpler than that. Your best player is LeBron. He was able to play. Your second best player is AD. He couldn't go. Your third best player is Dennis Schroeder. Dennis Schroeder turned down $84 million because he wants $100 million. He's the third best player on the team. He has to step up and be the second best player. The big question was, okay, Schroeder's better than Rondo in the regular season. We're not in the regular season now. We're in the playoffs, and there's playoff Rondo. What's playoff Schroeder look like? There's no such thing as playoff Schroeder, apparently. Stephen A., here are the numbers from Schroeder last night. 0 for 9 shooting, 0 for 4 from 3. He had 1 assist and no points. When you needed this dude to step up, he had 0 points. Not in the first quarter, in the game. 0 points. The first Laker to go scoreless in a playoff game while shooting 9+ shots since the franchise moved to LA. So you can talk to me about Montrezl Harrell and Andre Drummond and how coach should have used them and LeBron not stepping up enough and everything else. Your wannabe $100 million point guard needed to step up, and he gave you 0 points. He did something that no one has ever done with the Los Angeles Lakers. If you're looking for one guy to blame, Schroeder deserves it most.
Please, no disrespect, Max. You're not wrong. I'm not trying to imply that you're wrong with what you're saying about Schroeder himself and his pathetic, weak, impotent performance. You're absolutely right. But it's an absolute joke if you acting like he the cause of what the hell happened last night. You could have a bad game like that from Schroeder and still be a bit more respectable. Understand from it was Frank Vogel, because you could see on the first play of the game that Anthony Davis was grimacing. You saw it, first play of the game. And CP3 instantly saw it, being the killer that he is. CP3 and had everybody on Phoenix. If you go back, and Kendrick Perkins saw this, if you go back and watch the first few plays of the game, everybody that Anthony Davis was guarding touched the ball because they were trying to get him up out of there, because they could see that he just could not go, okay? And Frank Vogel, for some reason, kept him in for 5 minutes when he should have been out and won. Having said all of that, feeling the pressure, he went out there and tried to play. And it was right for him to try. You know, I felt he should have tried. Charles Barkley called him street clothes, felt he should have tried, along with various others. And that much is true. But in the end, I would say he looks good because of that. But here's why he doesn't look great. Because he's perpetually injured. And when you have a teammate who's the superstar, who's 36 years of age in his 18th season, well documented that he spends more than $1.5 million every year taking care of his body. Everybody's looking at Anthony Davis because of the multitude of injuries he suffered from. And they're saying, what the hell are you doing with your body? How much work do you really put in the offseason? How much do you train? How much do you get in that gym? What are your eating habits like? They're starting to bring stuff like that up because he's always hurt.
Anthony Davis looks good this morning. We look bad. We look bad. He looks good. First of all, Charles Barkley did call him street clothes. I called him Mr. Glass. Stephen A., you were on TV saying, I'm not trying to hear he needs to wait to get cleared. That's it. He needs to play if he can play. Forget about waiting to get cleared. So you know what happened? AD played. It was a valiant effort, right? And you could see right away. Everything you said is right about that. He should not have been out there on the floor. And by the way, it discombobulated the Lakers, having him out there. There didn't seem to be a plan if he couldn't play. Like, how are we going to play this? And so they quickly fell behind 20-plus points. And by the way, once AD was out and they adjusted and LeBron started taking over, they cut it to single digits. The team looked like they'd given up. They were going to get buried. They might lose by 40. It was close to 30 at one point. But they got it together, and they cut it to single digits late in the game. Maybe, if they don't play AD from the beginning, maybe they win. And by the way, what was the plan there? Because let's say AD could have played a little bit, and they won with AD, and they got to a Game 7. Now AD can't play at all. What was the point in even playing him in Game 6 when he was hobbled, clearly couldn't play, and it would have precluded him from playing in a Game 7, which you would have needed just as much? Did not make sense to me. He looks good. He went out there and gave it his best shot. He's just physically not built like LeBron. I don't think all the work in the world will change that. We look bad. We are all the ones saying, oh, he's got to play. Look how it turned out.
Well, first of all, Max, who is we? Because I never said that it was a must that he needed to play. Matter of fact, I was one of the guys, if you go back to the Golden State days when Kevin Durant played, that I said he didn't need to play. Why? Because he was still injured when Kevin Durant played with Golden State and he strained his Achilles. I said, don't play. You have nothing else to prove. And the same with Anthony Davis. We're talking about a guy who just came off of winning his first championship. What the hell do you have to prove to go out there and play hurt to the world? And then, hey, look, Charles Barkley calling the man street clothes. See, that's the problem that we have in today's game, okay, that they didn't have back then, was that we have social media. We have so many outlets where these guys can see what people are saying about them to put the pressure on them to go out there for 5 minutes like Anthony Davis did last night and show the world that he was too hurt to play. This is not golf. This is not where you have a court where you can have somebody driving you around or you walk to a hole and swing some clubs or something. You need your legs. And the man clearly didn't have his legs. So in my opinion, when I look at Anthony Davis and look at what he did last night, it wasn't about the Lakers. It wasn't about trying to go out there and help his team win. He went out there to try to please people and show people that don't even matter. That don't matter. Like, you have nothing to prove to the world. Nothing. You just won a championship. And at the end of the day, I want to talk about this, Stephen A. To your point about Anthony Davis getting in the gym. You're 100% right. Because you're right there under LeBron James. He shows you on a day-to-day basis, a guy that been on the team with LeBron James, and watch how he operates and watch how he moves throughout the course of the day, taking care of his body, getting in the gym early, hitting the weight room, doing things to that nature, his diet and hiring in the chef.
Why is LeBron out of the playoffs?
Well, it's simple. I mean, last night, my list of role players, I keep saying this is a team sport. And the Lakers couldn't make shots. The Lakers couldn't protect the paint. The Lakers couldn't rebound the basketball. Is that all on LeBron James? No, you need a supporting cast. You need guys to help you out. This is why they miss a guy like Rajon Rondo, who elevated his game and helped guys out like Kyle Kuzma, right? Put a key in his back to step his game up and help him guide through the way while LeBron James went to the bench. This is why they miss a guy like Dwight Howard, who had to fill in for injured Joel Embiid and help the 76ers close out the Wizards last game. Like, the role players matter. They matter. And if we're going to sit up here and talk about a guy that's in his 18th season and LeBron James, who finished with 7 and 9, I believe it was last night, with no help whatsoever. And all those Laker fans out there who had something to say about Danny Green, y'all were wrong, okay? Yeah, he missed a huge shot in Game 5, I believe it was last year. But one thing we know about Danny Green is that he's a gamer. He's a shot maker. And those same shots that Caldwell Pope, Wesley Matthews were missing, Danny Green was going to make those shots.
Yeah, Danny Green's also a 3 and D guy. He'll not only make the shots, he can still defend on the ball. Look, it's very simple why the Lakers lost. I'm sorry, Perk. It's not about the role players in this case. It's the injuries to the superstars. Every team in the league would make the same deal the Lakers made. If you could push all your chips to the middle of the table and wind up with LeBron and AD, which is going to thin out your roster, you're putting all your resources into grabbing AD and getting him to LA, you're going to do that. You're going to do that. Even though you know LeBron's up there in age, and so there's a higher chance of injury, and even though you know AD is injury prone, you're still going to make that deal. Everyone would do it. The Lakers did it. And guess what? They won a championship year 1. This is only year 2. Last year they were healthy. This year they're hurt. It was pretty obvious that if LeBron and AD would have been healthy, they'd have won the series. They'd have won the series. Now, you brought up a good point earlier, Perk. If Chris Paul was also healthy, I'd say it wouldn't have even gone 7 games. Maybe with a healthy Chris Paul, it would have. Lakers would have won. Lakers would have won that. They have enough with the role players that they would have won the series. It's not about the peripheral stuff. It's about the fact that your entire team revolves around 2 superstar pillars. One of them was on the court and compromised, still got you to single digits after being down almost 30, and the other one couldn't get on the court for more than a couple minutes. That's it. That's the whole story. Not more complicated than that.
It is a little bit more complicated than that, Max, but I understand why you wouldn't get that. Here's the deal, KP. When we look at LeBron, here's what we have to hold him accountable for. And we don't want to use the word fault because he's dependable. He's reliable. He does not cheat the game. But when you think back, and we've talked about these stories, Kendrick, when we talked about MJ, for example, and MJ loses, all right? He goes out, he retires the first go-round, he comes back, they lose to Orlando. When Nick Anderson, Dennis Scott, those boys got the better of him. Michael Jordan was training the next day. He gave the players 2 weeks off and then said, have your behinds back here. And they were on it. And that mission was that mission. And then the next season is when they won the 72 games and they had acquired Dennis Rodman and all of that stuff. If you recall, Kendrick Perkins, because you're a champion, you played in the league, and you know every damn body. So you know what I'm about to say is very, very true. The Lakers were lollygagging this year. Not LeBron, but the Lakers. You won the game, you won the championship, you in Tinseltown, you in LA, you were feeling yourself a little bit. Everybody that was around them was talking about their body language. They wasn't as focused, they weren't as locked in, they were relieved, feeling themselves, enjoying it. And who's the person to hold them accountable to say, hell no, we got another championship to go after? Who's that person?
It's LeBron.
There you go.
Yeah, but Stephen A, it's a totally different team though. We talking about they added Dennis Schroeder right to the lineup. We talking about a guy that averaged 19 points a game last year. They added Montrezl Harrell that won the 6th Man of the Year award that averaged close to 20 last year. They added this firepower to take and relieve some of the pressure off LeBron James and AD because they knew it was tougher. And what happened? Dennis Schroeder didn't win a championship last year.
I agree. But Kuzma did. Kuzma did. Markieff Morris did. Anthony Davis did. And Alex Caruso did.
But Stephen A, this is why I'm telling you and Max right now and Molly the value of a Rajon Rondo with that system.
I agree with that.
That's
Let me say this.
With that system. Because we all know that LeBron James hasn't been on record for his team-wise, and I've been on the team. He's not a vocal leader in the locker room. He just shows by example. Rajon Rondo is a coach that is a player that is a coach that happens to be on the floor. You see what I'm saying? He's the difference.
Let me say this. Having lived in L.A., I know New York is about dealing with pressure. L.A. is about dealing with distractions. It's not for everyone. It was for Kobe Bryant. You know, all the things that how Kobe took advantage of L.A. was after he retired. Kobe wasn't letting anything in L.A. get in between him and his